Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Old Time Rock and Roll. I'm your host, David Tier, where I feature a different rock and roll artist every day whose birthday it is today. And today is the birthday of this guy here, Felix Cavaliere. In case you don't know who he is, he was he was one of the lead singers of a very big band from the '60s called the Young Rascals. But before he did that, he actually performed with another band, this band here called Joey D and the Starlighters. I think he was just with them for a few years, but they were kind of a popular doo-wop band from the late '50s and early '60s. They got started in '58. They had one big hit. They had a number one song called the Peppermint Twist. I guess the twist was really popular in the early '60s, and that was one of the big twist songs. But like I said earlier, he achieved bigger fame with this group here. They were originally called the Young Rascals. Later, they became known as the Rascals. But they had several big hits and a lot of big albums. Their first big album was this one here, was just called the Young Rascals. This one came out in 1965. This one had the first number one. They actually had three number one songs in the '60s, so they were a very popular band. Their first number one was called "Good Lovin'," and also on this album there was some remakes of some other very popular songs from the time. They did a version of "Like a Rolling Stone," which was originally recorded by Bob Dylan. They also had a couple songs that became hits for Wilson Pickett, including "Mustang Sally" and "The Midnight Hour." And then their next big album was called Collections. This came out in 1967. This had the hit "I've Been Only Too Long," and also okay, that was the only really hit on that album. Then their next big album was called Groovin', and this one had their next number one. It was just called Groovin', and they also had the songs "A Girl Like You," "How Can I Be Sure," and "You Better Run." "You Better Run" was remade in the '80s by Pat Benatar. It was told it was one of the first few videos played on MTV. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to look that up. But anyway, kind of interesting. I really like the song "How Can I Be Sure." And when I first heard it, I thought it was the Turtles. It sounded a lot like the Turtles. I think, I don't know if it was Felix Cavaliere, but whoever was the lead singer on that reminded me a lot of the lead singer of the Turtles. And it's kind of interesting because they say, "How's the weather?" and "How can I be sure?" And the Turtles and Happy Together say, "How is the weather?" Which is kind of interesting. Maybe that's why I thought it was the Turtles. But anyway, it's a really good song. One of my favorites by the Rascals. And their next big album was called Freedom Suite. And this one had their third number one, which is called People Gotta Be Free. I think this was their biggest hit, actually. And I heard it was an international hit. And I think the reason it was such a big hit was because it came out shortly after the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. And of course, JFK was assassinated in '63, and I think that was just a really big shock to most of the world, because they were three really great leaders, two of them just in that year. So I think that kind of struck a chord with a lot of people. And it is a really good song. But then that was pretty much did it for the Rascals, and then they broke up in 1972, I believe, and Felix Cavaliere went solo. He's still a solo performer, but he never really achieved much fame as a solo performer. This was his first album, and I don't think it even charted. So really, he was most famous for his performance with the Rascals. But I think the Rascals were a really good group, and I think that's Felix Cavaliere's claim to fame, and that's my profile on Felix Cavaliere of the Rascals. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.